Okay. Please confirm if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
All right, cool. Okay, so today basically we are going to be looking at some of the new uh, updates on Figma. Uh, remember, I believe everyone must have gone through a class or two that I've had, and I believe most of my classes I do talk about how you can't stop learning, right? And because technology is evolving, right? And if you actually keep the knowledge you had when please can you mute? Yes, so please stay muted. If you want to ask something, you know how it goes. There's no question time, so you can always ask. Yeah, so technology is evolving, right? And because it's evolving, you can't keep the knowledge you already have. You have to keep looking out for new trends, looking out for new technology, and looking out for updates in the existing technology. Like, uh, if you've not started using AI, then you're already lacking behind, right? Because your technology has moved to even Figma now has AI. There is Fig GPT that helps you to create content for your design, right? Now, I'm just going to be looking at some of those updates. Might not be how you've seen it being used, and also if there's any update you've tried out that is not covered here, you can actually share your screen and we would all learn together, right? So, um, I shared the link to this file. You just open it in Figma. Um, how do I remove this? Let me see. I'm not a Zoom fan. Mm, yeah. So when you get this file, you just click on this and duplicate. So I'm going to close every other instance. So this is my duplicate. So I'm going to call this, let me just call this class. Now, there are a number of features, even from even from the layout of Figma. I think one of the things that changed is just that they added this dev mode, right? Now, there are other features that you would see when you start using Figma afresh. Now, one of the most important thing that has been updated is auto layout. So the way our auto layout works has been updated. And also, before we even go into auto layout, one little change. Remember how you preview designs before? You have to click on the design and click this play button. So Figma now has a feature where you don't need to actually play like open another screen and be juggling screen to check your preview and check your design. So if you just press shift space, it opens up a preview. It opens up a preview for you on the screen that you can actually drag around. You can adjust it. And this preview is the preview is basically live. So as you are changing it, you are seeing it reflecting on your screen, on your preview rather. Yeah, so why that load? Now, auto layout has been a very, very beautiful feature for Figma for a very long time. And if you're used to web development, Autolayout is just similar to your Flexbox, right? So this is the preview now. So if I change anything here, it basically changes straight. So we have that cool feature. Please make please mute your mic. All right, thank you. Now, let me not assume. Do we all know how to create an auto layout? Do we all know about auto layouts before we even go into the new feature? Is there
I don't know. I don't know how to create autos.
I don't know how to.
Okay, so auto layout is basically it's more like what you call, like what the name says, auto layout. So basically like an automatic layout. So let's assume we have different items and we want them to be laid out in a certain pattern, right? So we use auto layout, and you create an auto layout simply by clicking Shift A, right? So you can see all these things have been arranged in a manner, and you can now change the direction. You can change how it is positioned with the help of the controls of auto layout, which you can see here, right? So we now have that option in auto layout. So let me reduce this to 10. So that's basically what auto layout is. It's arranging, it helps you to arrange your elements better. So even if I start adding more, if I start adding more items to this, it doesn't break the layout. So basically that's what auto layout does. But maybe I would make a video totally. So now this whole blog card has been created with auto layout. Like everything in it has been put into an auto layout. So we have the image, and this image is set to fill. And fill means if you stretch this container, the image is also going to be stretching, right? So that's the property of fill. Then this is also an auto layout inside an auto layout. So inside this auto layout, we have the heading, which is also the heading and text, which is also set to fill. That means it also grows. Now, as you can see, it is growing. Now, one of the challenge here is, let's assume, okay, let's even go to the first one first. Now, if I reduce this, look at this tag, the one that says design, research, and presentation. Let me zoom in. Now, if I reduce the frame, this frame, you see how it is behaving, right? You can see that it is coming out of the screen, which might not be what we want, right? Do we agree? We want,
Yeah.
we want this to be able to adapt to the size of the screen. Now, Figma has a feature called wrap in auto layouts. So that means if an item is auto layout, you can have this feature called wrap. And wrap, you see vertical layout, horizontal layout, then wrap. So when you click on wrap, when the screen is no longer able to contain the elements, it basically drops down. You can see how it behaves now. You can see, which this was not actually possible in the previous version of Figma. So wrap can help you to build like for the first time, you can actually build what we call responsive design. Now let's assume we have 3 of these cards. Or let me just do it like this. I have 3 of these cards, or 4. And these 4 can fit into where? Can fit into a desktop, right? Like how it is arranged, it can actually be a desktop frame. Let's create a desktop frame. Let's say MacBook. Now this is a desktop. Okay, let's just do 3. So these 3 guys can fit in here. Now, let's assume these 3 are auto layout. And this, we now say, okay, this shape has reduced. This, we reduce this frame.
Don't say it. Huh?
Can you hear me?
Sorry.
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, cool. So now, let's assume we are reducing this frame, or we are increasing this frame. You can see how it is behaving. And even if we have this clip content, this is what we are going to be seeing. Right? Now, with Figma Wrap now, you now have the option to actually turn this to a dynamic, like it will adjust dynamically, right? So once it gets to a point where it can't contain the frame again, it drops down. If you keep on adjusting, once it gets to another point, it drops down. And I believe this is the behavior you see on your mobile phone. Now, if you go to something like a Punch, you go to like Punch newspaper on your desktop, you're going to see items arranged from left to right. But if you look at it on your mobile phone, you're going to see it from top to bottom. Am I right?
Yeah, you're right.
So this is now possible with Figma because of this wrap function of auto layouts. Now, there is also something else called, now before now, we could, so before now, we could simply just, we could simply add a width, right? We could simply just add a width and a height. Now, Figma has introduced something else. Now, let me show you some of the reasons why we have that. Now, let's assume this item is set to fill container. So because it's set to fill container, it's going to be stretching, right? So anyhow you take it, it's going to stretch till infinity, which might not be the behavior you want. You might want this thing to be wider on a, let me do Ctrl Z. You might want it to be wider on a desktop, but you want it to be smaller on a mobile. Now, Figma has the feature now called min width. So min width means minimum width, and also max width. Max width means the maximum width. So the maximum width is the maximum at which these elements can actually stretch. So if you add a min width of, say, let's do this, the current size, let's do 390. Then we also add max width. So to get that, you just come to your width and you see the drop down arrow. Once you click on it, you see add min width and add max width. So we are doing the max width of 500. Now we've done that for this. We might replicate it for this, but let's see how it works on all this first. Now, because if this item now starts to stretch, sorry, Now, if this item starts to stretch, if you look at it, it actually reduced till the point it got to 350. That is where it is going to break, because that's what we've set it as, that, okay, the minimum this item should get to is 350. And the maximum, if I check this now, it's going to be, sorry, 390, right? It's going to be 390. As you can see, it's 390, which is what we set. Now, if I stretch it, the maximum is going to get to, instead of it filling the everywhere, like what it was doing before, is 500. And if I check this width now, it's going to be 500. So that's min width and max width. So we can, let me see if I can copy and paste the property to this one. No, okay, I have to set it. So let me do that for all this one. 390. Max width 500. So you can see, because the max width is not yet set, that's why it's stretching like this. So if I set max width to 500, it's going to adjust back to 500. So I'm going to do the same thing for this. So now, it helps us to create a more responsive design. Now, you can use this in many different ways. So you can see when you are reducing it, it reduce till it gets to 390. The moment it gets to 390, the item will break. Yeah. Something wrong with this one. Okay. So the moment it gets to that 390, the item breaks. The moment, and you see, once it breaks, it adjusts back to fill the space back to the 500. So let's say this is how your tablet view, let's say this is your mobile view, and your tablet view looks something like this. Then your mobile view, so this is your desktop view, right? Your tablet view will look something like this, and your mobile view will look something like this, which is basically the behavior with basically the behavior. So yeah, so this helps us to create more dynamic content, right? It helps us to create. Now, let me just break this one out, and we'll use it to create something else. Now, let's say I want to have this content by the side, and this image will be bigger, and the content will be this way. I'm going to add a now. I didn't take this. Okay. Let me change this background. I see what's happening. Okay. So I want to bring this one down. So basically just move this guy. Now I want this whole thing to be centered. And this is some of the behaviors you see on your design, on like your normal websites, right? So let's say this is a desktop frame. Now, let me fill it with white. Okay, so I'll go back to dark mode. Now, how to say, if this screen reduces, let's make this guy drop down, like to create a mobile responsiveness or a mobile view. Now we can do the same thing like what we did, add a min width. So add a min width of, at what point does it break? Let's say 500. And max, no, let's do 400 or 350. And the max width of 500. Now, this one also is going to have its own min width. So let's say min width of 350 also. Max width of 600. Now that means if I stretch this content, this item is going to stretch till it gets to its max width, right? And if I reduce it, because we've not yet added what we're going to add to it, you can see how it is behaving. Now, the moment I add wrap to this container, I add wrap. Once it gets to the minimum width, it drops down, right? It drops down to give us a mobile version, which is basically, we can just improve it by adding like a padding, let's say 10 to the 10. Then this one would min width would be, yeah. So basically, you understand what I'm saying. So basically, we are now creating dynamic content. Now, before now, the way we can do this is by using a plugin called Breakpoint. So Breakpoint, most times when people used to ask me, I think I've had that question like 1,000 times. How do you create responsive design? And the truth was, before now, you don't actually create responsive design. You create design you create both for your mobile phone, you create for desktop, you create your tablet version, then your developer converts it to a responsive design. And this was what we used to do that before. Breakpoint. So Breakpoint helps you to manage basically what we just did. But to use Breakpoint, you must have created this version and also created this version. This version that is like this. So you now use Breakpoint to tell you that, okay, once it gets to this size, okay. So you just tell it once it gets to this side, convert the prototype to this. And basically that's what Breakpoint does. And Figma now it gives us ability to actually do that ourselves. Do you have any questions so far before we move into now? I talked about three things: auto layouts, prototyping, and the dev mode. The dev mode is not really something you're going to use, but we'll still just look at it. So we're done with auto layout. Do you have any questions so far? Do you understand basically everything that has been said? Any question? So can we go on? Can we go on? We are good. Just say, let's go on.
Yeah, let's go on.
All right, thank you. Now we are going to move into the next phase. Now, this next phase is the prototyping part, which is the fun part. Now, Figma has added some cool new features to prototyping. And one of the most important things that all these cool new features surround is called variables. Now, think about variable. If you are used to programming, you know what variable is already. But look at variable as a container. So variable is a container where you store a value. Now that value can be different things. In Figma, it can be 4 things. It can be a string, it can be a color, it can be a number or a Boolean, right? And we're going to look at all that. So variable is just a container. It is not the value, right? Now, most times, you know, when we used to create style guide, that you can simply just create a box and apply a style to it. Now, this, you might look at, oh, is this not a variable? But it's not a variable because this is actually you are assigning, right? However, variable is just a container. That means it's just holding a value. It is not the value itself, right? So the value can either change, can be modified, can be added to, and basically that's what we're going to look at. Now, to access variable, if you want to prototype, you need to click out. That means you're not selecting anything. If you select something, you're not going to see it. So you're going to click out and you're going to see something called local variables. Local variables. So the moment you click on local variable, you'll see, let me delete this. So we'll start. So you're going to see something called collection. So collection basically means like group. So you can group variables and you can create a collection. So you can group them into a collection, right? So we can say, okay, this is a collection of colors, this is a collection of text, this is a collection of, depending on how you want to use it, right? So if you create a collection, this one is already created, so I'm just going to rename it and say numbers. So I've created this collection.
Yeah. Please repeat this part, this variables again, like this side, please.
Okay, I should repeat it. Okay, I said
Yes.
variables are containers. All right, so you're going to see how it works. But they are containers that are used to store values, just like your bucket is used to store water. But you can change the water to rice. You can change the water to anything you want, right? So basically, that's what variable is. They are like they are containers, not even like containers. They are containers that hold a value, right? Now, to access variable on Figma, you need to click out. That means if you have anything selected, you're not going to see it. So once you click out, where you see your page color, where you can change the color, you also have something just under it called local variables. Local variables. Now, once you click on this icon here, it pops this out. We've already created a collection, but we have something called collections. You can create a new collection, and let's call this collection colors. This collection is called colors. So you can access all your collection. Sorry. Please, if you have a chat, okay, please just say it. I'm not looking at this. Okay. So you have your different, like the one I created before, numbers, colors. So I can select, if you have multiple, you're going to see all of them here, right? So collection is basically just group. You know how we used to group stuff in Figma. So collection is groups. So we are grouping them into, maybe they are related. So we are just grouping them. So if I choose this number collection, I can now create a variable. So you see what it says, create reusable number, text, color that can be used, applied across your files and prototype. Now, if I create a variable, now basically let's look at this file. I'm going to duplicate it. What we want to do is to increase this like once you click on this icon. So we want to be able to increase this like. So we are going to create a variable, and you see the 4 things: color, number, string, boolean. And the moment I select this, it's going to tell me to name my variable. So I'm going to name it like count. By default, like count is, let's leave it at 0. Let's leave it at 0. Now, this doesn't make any difference yet, but we are going to work on the logic. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make this a component by clicking this and create a variant of it. Why? Because I want to make a version of when it is clicked. So then it's clicked, I just want it to turn to, no, not this color. I just want this black to turn to blue, right? When it is clicked. Now, how do we now use this variable? I would select this number 1 and this number 1. And when you come to your text, you're going to see in your text now, you're going to be seeing something called this small icon, this variable, right? So you can assign a variable. You can assign a variable to a text, right? So you can see apply variable. I'm going to click apply variable, and the variable I want to select is called like count. So the moment I selected it, it turns back to 0 because our variable is set to 0. So if I change this variable from here to 1000, it's going to become 1000. If we stretch this out, you're going to see this. So it's going to become 1000. So anything this variable is holding is what that item is going to be holding. Because remember, it's a container, right? So it is basically taking any value assigned to it, like count. And because we've said, okay, this number should be like count, whatever value is now assigned to like count is what's going to be showing here. Do you understand? Do you understand before we go further? Before it gets more complicated. All right, cool. Now, with that done, we just need some more logic. Right. This, I'm going to duplicate this and replace it with the one we just created. So because this is now a component. So anything that happens to this one happens to that one too. So I'm going to go to my prototype. Now this is where the logic is coming in. I'm going to go to my prototype, and I'm going to just simply do a prototype of, I believe we all know how to do this. I'm just going to say, okay, on click, switch this to the clicked version. Right. If you click on this, let's have this blue version, and we can see that working already. Space. If I click this, it turns to the blue one. Right. Now, if I click it, we want it to be able to increase this value. Once you keep clicking it, we want it to be able to increase this value. Now, what do I now do? I now go to this prototype. Right. In fact, from here too, once you click on this, we've already set it to switch to this, but we also want to have it increase the number. Now, once you click on your variable, you now have the option to add. Remember before now, you can't apply more than one action to a button, like a button. You can't say the button should do 2 things when you're prototyping. Do you remember? But now we can now add more than one action to it. So now I'm going to click. You see, we have already set the on click, right? But now we're going to add another action. But this action is, you have to move your file to a theme, right? That means to actually use these variables, you can assign it, you can do all that, but to actually modify it from prototype, you have to add your file to a theme. So I'm just going to choose one theme. Now I've added it to a theme. So a theme means you have to be on a paid plan, right? So most times if you're working in a team, or you've already been assigned to a team, I believe everyone in everyone that did their whole American Corner training, we're in that team, right? So you can, I believe you can access, you can have this feature also. And also if you are maybe like on an educational plan, you can also have this feature. So now, once I click on this plus, I have different options. Now, the option I want is called set variable because it's a variable we did. So set variable, it's now saying the next option we are saying is which variable do you want to set? So I want to set like count. So what do you want like count to do? So I want to say whatever it is, like count plus 1. That means whenever someone click on this, I want to add 1 to like count. So if like count was 5, add 1 to it. If it was 0, add 1 to it. And with that, we have our logic in place. But we've not assigned it to the second one, but let's just see how it behaves yet. So shift space, if I click on this, it adds 1 to like count. But if I keep clicking this, it's not going to work because we've not yet done the same thing to this blue version. So I'm going to do the same thing, interaction. We're going to set variable, like count, and say like count plus 1. Now that works. So if I play my prototype, plus 1, plus 1, plus 1, plus 1, and it's going to keep adding plus 1 to it. So the moment it is 23, in your variable, it is in the place you set your variable, it is 23. And across board, if you have this design in 25 places, it's going to, if you have this, let me create another version, another one of it. So because it's still it's a variable, right? So anywhere this is, it's going to be 23. Anywhere I click it, everything's going to change to 23. Or it's going to be adding basically, because all of them are set to one particular variable, or rather one particular, what do you call it? One particular
component.
Yes, basically one particular variable, that's the word. So all of them are set to a particular variable. So if I change the variable anywhere, it's going to affect everything. So do we understand that? Do you understand that? Should we go a step further?
Yeah, it's clear, it's clear.
All right, cool. So moving further, let's look at this one. Now, this is just like your movie ticket, right? Where you can,
Sir, excuse me.
yeah, go ahead.
Me. I'm practicing this thing, this number count, and I've already grouped these numbers, and I've already created a component, and I've named the variable to that like count. But if I'm increasing the value, it's not increasing in the this thing, that main number. Things is not increasing. You understand that?
Have you set the remember we created the logic that is actually increasing it. We created that plus 1. Right?
I've not set it.
We created this like count plus 1 when we set variable. So
okay.
So we are saying whenever you click on this set variable, like count plus 1. So let's step further. So we have this same thing. We have a component that says plus, minus, but let's just bring this one out and do our logic on it. So basically we are going to also do the same thing and create, let's make it a component. But we don't need a variant in this sense. But now let's create a variable. So now I'm going to call this, this is where you can now use collection. So we can create a new collection and call it license. Let's call it purchase. Now can create a variable and call this is a number variable, I will call this license count. And license count by default is 1. And we'll create another variable. Okay, let's just add the logic to this first. Now, we want to assign this variable to license count. So basically, I just come assign variable. Now I can see my like count and license count. So I want to sell, and it's very important you name this thing very well, because if you don't name it well, you are going to be confused as to what you are selecting. So you can see they are grouped in collection and also in the name of the variable. So I'm assigning that to license count. And I'm also saying when you click plus, I want to increase license counts. License counts. So I'll say license count plus 1. Now, the same thing when you click minus, I want to reduce my license count. So I'll set variable, say license counts. When I click it, license counts minus 1. Now, we've already done this. I can now replace this guy here. And which one is our component? Okay. So I want this again. Okay, cool. So if I play this now, we should be having that logic. License last plus 1 minus 1. You can see how it's working, plus 1 minus 1. Now, how do we make, okay, let's even create let's create another variable. Let's create another item, right? Let's say drop down. Sorry. Let's create another item that will be called, let's call it maybe handling fee or something, or processing fee. I want to align this. Okay, so let's say processing fee is $10. $10. Now, if processing fee is $10, what's our total supposed to be?
$49.
9. Now, if you notice, okay, I think there's even a mistake here, but we'll fix that. So when you're creating this, you need to ensure that because we are using the number variable will not be able to change this symbol, right? So we need to ensure that we are creating these two things as a separate entity. Sorry. So we need to ensure that we are creating these two things separately. I'm just going to remove this auto layout first. Okay. I'm going to paste my dollar here. And I can group these two together. Then this guy goes back to his normal way. I'm going to just duplicate this instead of doing all that. So I'm going to call this, what was the name, sir? Cost per seat. Cost per seat. So this is going to be $39. Now, cool. Now, going back to our variable, we now need cost per seat, processing fee, and total variable. Okay, we don't even need processing fee because it's constant. So we need cost per seat variable and total variable. So inside the same collection, we can now create a new variable, and it's a number. We're going to call it seat cost. Seat cost, and seat cost, let's assign it the default value of 39. Then we'll add another variable called total cost. And total cost is going to be, let's set it also to 49 by default. Now, remember we just created, we've not yet assigned. So we're going to be assigning this one to seat cost and assign this one to total cost. Now we've not added any logic. That means nothing is going to change till we add logic. So I'm going to say, remember what we're doing now. We're saying if I click on this plus, but you're going to do it from your component, right? So we switch to prototype and click on the existing prototype and click plus again. So I'm adding a new one. If I still click on this, with the fact that you're increasing this seat count, I also want you to increase the seat cost, the cost per seat, which is the seat cost. So we say seat cost equals to the seat cost, which is 39 times you can do multiplication times license counts. So that means seat cost times license count will give us the, are we even supposed to say cost per seat? Let's just say it's seat cost. Or subtotal. All right, subtotal is the total before you add. Yeah, subtotal is better. So let's just call it like that. So back here. So seat cost times that one. We can now even add more logic and say, okay, let's add another one. Then also want to update and we want to add another set variable and say, I want to update total cost. I want to say total cost equals to subtotal, which is the seat cost, plus 10. Now let's see how that works. We're going to do the same thing for the minus, but let's see how the plus works first. So once I click on this frame and I click plus, I see 78 plus 10, 88. If I make it 10. So we have, it's okay. We're just going to arrange the layouts more. Let's make this, it's scattering. So let's give this a field container. Let's see. Okay. Same thing with this one. I think this one is working well. Yeah, just this one. Okay, let's see how that works. That's too much, still scratching, but basically, our logic is working. But you can see that this logic is not working for the plus, for the minus, which is what make it scatter like what you're saying now. So we are now going to set the logic for the minus also. So prototype, I'm going to add, remember we already have one, so we're going to set variable again. And we're setting variable and say seat count. Oh, I think we even made a mistake there, but I'll fix it. Seat count supposed to be seat count minus license seat count minus 39 actually, not multiplied, minus 39. So that means each time you click on this minus, it's supposed to remove $39 from the subtotal, right? So we're going to also do the same thing for the plus. We're going to make it plus, not minus. So plus, where do we set that? Okay, I'm going to make this plus 39. Yeah, so that should work. So we have plus, and you have minus. Okay, our minus is not updating. So you can see what's happening. Our minus is not updating the total. But what's more important is that if we click 0, our minus goes to 0. It goes to minus 39, which is not the behavior we want, right? So while we set our minus, brings us to the next thing, next update called conditionals. So there is something called conditionals. So I want to update the set variable. I want to update the total cost should be seat cost plus 10. So we have done that for the minus also. So the minus is not working. However, we are still going to be having that issue of having a negative value. If I have minus, I'm going to have minus 29, minus 68, minus 107, which is not supposed to be available. Now, Figma also has this thing called conditional. So when you click on this plus button, you now have set variable and conditional. So conditional is if you have used programming, it's called if else. So if this thing meets a certain criteria, then you should do this. But if it doesn't, you can now set something else. So let's say you can say if you click on conditional, it said if. So you write condition or else. So if else, which is basically what you have in programming, right? So if seat count, you now have different options, equal to, not equal to, greater than, less than. So if seat cost is less than 1, no, let's do greater than 0. So if it is greater than 0, when it's greater than 0 is when we want all these things that we did to happen. So you can easily just start writing them here. So we can start saying all those things we do, set variable, blah, blah, blah. But we can also just drag it in. So let's just drag it in here. So if seat cost is less than 0, is when we want all these things to happen, all these things we're seeing here. So with that, we can now have a good logic. So we can add plus, 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 minus, 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 minus. And the moment it hits 0, it doesn't work again because there's nothing to subtract from, right? The moment it hits 0, it cannot work again. And with that, we have all our logic in place. Do we understand? Do you have any questions so far? Are we together?
Yes, we are together.
So do you understand? Are we?
I'm not saying I really understand it. Where I'm somehow confused is those subtraction and stuff.
Okay, so it's just look at it as mathematics. Look at basically when you want to do a prototype like this, you need to look at, okay, what do I need? You need to know the variables that are going to be changing and what is going to make it change. Now, if you look at this, if you let's do, maybe we'll do an e-commerce later if there's time. Oh wow, it's 1 hour already. Okay, if you look at this variable, you know what is going to be changing. This text is not changing. This text is not changing. This number is not changing because it's going to be, processing fee is going to be the same. Or you can have what you call so if you want to even make it complicated, let's say shipping fee. Maybe shipping fee is now, if the item is more than 10, you now add 20 to the shipping fee. So you cannot start doing stuff like that. So you know what is going to change. For us, we know this is not going to change. We know subtotal is changing and total is changing. So now what is going to make subtotal to change? This is the real price, 39. So subtotal is going to change if this team seat changes. That means we know that if team seat change, subtotal is going to change. That means it's a determining factor. So you now say, okay, this subtotal plus the teams plus the amount of team seats we have. So we have one more team seat added. Let's add another 39 to it. Basically, that was the logic we created, which you can see here. If you have one more license count, okay, this is it. If we have one more seat, let's add 39 to it. If we add one more, add another 39. If you add one more, add another 39. Then we now also said, when you add 39 to this, add this 10 to the total, because we know total is changing and total is total cost. So we're now saying whatever this value is, which is seat cost, whatever this value is, add 10 to it, which is what we see here. So basically all this logic are just what is, it's just knowing what you want to achieve, know what's changing, know what is going to make it change. So the thing that is making this change is if this subtotal changes. So if this subtotal changes, I want to add 10 to whatever is the value of this subtotal, which is what we have here. So we have 156 plus 10 will give us 166. So if I add one more, because this one has changed, this one will also change. Because this one has changed, this one will also change. Do you understand?
Yes, it's clear now, it's clear.
So the same thing goes with the minus, only that the minus now added the conditional to it because we don't want it, we only want this, all these things to happen. So for this minus, we said, first, when you click on it, let me rearrange it well. This guy is going to come up. This one is going to come down. Okay. So first, we say when we click on this, license count should be license count, which is this 1 minus 1, right? The next thing we also said is the seat cost minus 39, which is the original price of it, right? So 39 minus 39, because once you click minus, you want to remove one more from it. You want to remove 1, you want to remove 1. So we now also said total cost is also the seat cost plus 10, which is still the same thing that we had in that one, because even if it is 39, now it's not you'll be tend to say, okay, because we are using minus, we want to do minus something. But because whatever is here is what is being added to this place. Like I said, you need to know what is making it to change. So even if you are reducing, it's still whatever is in the subtotal plus 10, right? Now, there is also still an issue that if you do minus, you are saying that this total is still 10. That means if I now click on pay, maybe your button is set to pay when there's a total cost here. That means I'll be able to pay $10 for nothing. You can even take this further and say, if subtotal is 0, remove this one and remove it from this total. Like the possibility is like endless. You just have to imagine it. You can have that. I can add that condition. I can add that condition to this button, and once it is 0, we'll take this off and we'll remove it from here. So this total will become 0. Do you understand? So basically, just understanding what you need to do and what is going to be changing to do it. So can we go ahead?
Yes, yes.
All right. Cool. So we've been working with numbers, right? Now we're going to work with color. Now for color, we're going to also do the same thing, create a variable. I'm going to call it, I think I have color here, so I'm just going to use this one and say, now inside create a variable, we are creating a color variable. So let's call it background. Now let's set this background default to this color. So just the same way, I want to make this a component and a variable. So what I'm going to do is this guy and this guy. Okay, I'm going to make them 50%. So to show that they are not selected, then this button is basically created with Autolayout. So I'm just going to jack that guy to this side. I'm going to click a prototype, create a prototype that says, when you click on this, navigate to this one. When you click on this, move to this, smart animate, basically that logic. Now, to our frame, let me remove this and bring in this one here. So to our frame, we now have an option of color, right? We have this color, right, that you can turn on and off. Now in this our field, if you now click on this 4 button where we have styles, you can now assign a background to it. Now I've assigned this background to this. Now, what does that mean? That means if I change the background of my variable, if I change this background, it's going to affect that background. So you can see that. Now, how can we now use that to toggle dark mode? Also, we can basically create this one as white background or dark background, but we also add something called mode. So if you click on this plus icon, it's called mode. So you can click on and add a new variable mode. So you have mode 1 and mode 2. So let's call mode 1 dark, mode 1 light mode. Let's add mode, light mode and dark mode. Dark mode. So we can now say let our dark mode be this color, right? Now, so what we want to now do is, on our prototype, we can now assign change variable, set variable, and we are assigning the background color, and we're going to assign it the color of the dark mode. Let's see, let me see. Okay, set variable, background. We're setting it to, let's see. Let's see how that works first. Okay, that works perfect. Yeah. All right. So basically we are setting the variable to a dark color when you click on this. Let me just return it and also do the same thing. Let me return this back. Okay, when you click on this guy, navigate to this one, smart animate, and also set variable of background color. And we're going to set it back to this blue color. So let's see if that works. So dark mode, light mode, dark mode, light mode. So normally, if you're going to be creating this before now, you need to have had 2 different frames, right? You need to have 2 different frames that you're going to be using for this. That means you are going to be changing. Now, you're going to have the dark mode and the light mode, and you are now prototyping from here to here. Let me just show you how it is done before now. Let me create a new rectangle and say, let's make it a frame. A frame and duplicate it. So normally we would have had this one will be our blue, while this one will be our black. So we would have our icon here. And also have it here. Then this one, we can now switch it to the other one. Then we normally would have done prototype and say, on click, smart animate to this guy. On click, smart animate to this guy. And it's still going to work the same way. If we play it. Oh, I have to detach this because it's using that condition. Detach. So it's no more attached to that variable, detach instance. So we now have, this is the way we do it before, but we have a better way with Figma now. To switch colors. So that's working with color. Like color is like, you can basically, creating color is like very, very crazy. There are very crazy things you can do with it. You can set, if we get here, let me say the time. If we get here, you would see how we're going to use different colors. Now, do you understand the color, setting color variables? Do you understand how to set color variables?
Yes.
All right, cool. Now, the next one we're going to look at is, in fact, I'm going to add both. We're going to use 2 and say, let's put a name, Helen. So we're going to use both name, string, because we have not talked about 2 variables, which is string and boolean. So we're going to look at them now. So we're going to create a variable and let's call it also string. So strings, we are going to create a text variable, string variable, which is text. Right. So let's call this name. And let's give it a value of this Helen Paul. Now we're also going to create another collection and call it Boolean. And create a variable called Boolean. And Boolean is show avatar. And by default, it's turned to on. Or by default, should be off it. Let's leave it on. So now we're going to work on this. Yeah, so let's have this become a component and variables and two different variables. Okay, let me delete this one first. So for this first one, we want to hide the check mark, right? So we'll give it an opacity of 0. Then for this one, we also want to keep the check mark hide, so opacity of 0, but we would have a border, a stroke, right? So we can give the stroke a blue color, right? This is hover. This is an over version of it. So we can call this over. So we'll create another variable, another variance rather, and this is going to be, is going to have our check mark back. So have our check mark back to 100. And the check mark is going to be white, while the background is going to be blue. Okay, so now both of these things, hide avatar, both of these ones are going to be assigned a variable of that Boolean, right? Because we don't want them to show, right, when they are not checked. So I'm going to add that Boolean variable to it. Now, where is it? So let's add hold on. Okay. So to get this Boolean, right? So Boolean basically is true or false. That means it's used to show or hide something. So to get where this Boolean is, you need to come to this eye that toggle on and off, and right click it. And you click on show avatar. Right. So this one too, the same thing, right click, assign show avatar to it. This one too, right click, assign show avatar to it. Where is what happened to our checkbox? Okay. So now, in this state, so we have to change that show avatar to 0, to false, right? So in this state, let me delete this and bring one of these here. Now to prototype it. So basically, we are just going to prototype and say from this, when you hover on this, so this is going to be while hovering, smart animate. Then when you click on this one, and click change to this guy, then we now also want to set variable. I want to set the variable of show avatar to true. So we want to show avatar to become true. And we change it to sorry. Click set variable, show avatar to true. So I want to change it to true. So basically the same thing, we are returning this to this side on click set variable, show avatar back to false. And now let's see how that works. Let's see how that works here. So the same way, if you hover, you see we have that cool hover effect. But once I click it, my avatar shows. Once I remove it, okay. My avatar removes. Once I click it, it shows. Once I remove it, it removes. It's supposed to be instant, not smart animate, because we're having sort of a delay. So instant, show avatar also instant. So the possibility of this prototyping in Figma is now like endless, right? So I can click on this guy back, show avatar, remove avatar, show avatar, remove avatar. So next, want to change the name, right? So I want to change the name. Basically, that's where string comes in. So I want to assign this to name. Oh, okay, let's just leave it like that. So we want to say when we click on, when we are actually showing avatar, we want to change this name to something else. This is not like the best case scenario, but I'm just going to use it for this sake. So once we click on this show avatar, we want to change the name also. So I want to change set variable, and variable we want to set is the name. I want to change it to, let's say, welcome. And basically, just like that, we have that logic. So we have Helen, and we have welcome Helen. So basically, you can use all of this. So not to overload you with too many things. Do you have any questions? Anyway, I'm going to be dropping video of all this explanation on YouTube, and I'll send the link. But do you have any questions so far? Do you have any clarification you need? Do you have something that is not clear, basically? Yeah, anybody? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So are we good? Do we all understand?
Yes, I understand.
All right, cool. All right, so we're going to be stopping here. However, I was going to show, I'm trying to see where I have that. Like there is a lot of things you can actually do with, where I was going to go way more advanced into creating, using it to update our e-commerce. Basically when you have plus or minus here, How is it going to know which value to actually pick? Stuff like that. And adding a promo code, but we are like 1 hour, 30 minutes gone. So I guess we would have to have maybe another class, or I'll just do a video and send. So with this few points of mine, I hope I'm able to convince you that Figma is very interesting. And once you basically get the hang of knowing what you want to do, how to do it becomes easy. Because when you know what you actually want to create, if you look at this now, you are supposed to prototype it. Now, what does even all these things, what does it help you save? Remember what we call the spider web when you are creating a prototype. When you have like 200 screens and you prototype all of them, you're going to be seeing something like spider web. Right, so this helps you to eliminate useless screens. Before now, you have like very, very useless screens that you don't need. Maybe it's just one thing that is going to change on this screen, but you have to duplicate the whole screen just to show that one screen, one item. So this helps you to manage states and change items dynamically. So it's kind of very, very a big deal. It's like a whole big deal for designers, thinking that, okay, your file will be more organized. Okay, the last thing is called the dev mode. You might not really use it, but basically when you switch to dev mode, it asks you which platform do you actually want to use. So web, if you are building for iOS, Android, right? So you can basically just choose web, dark mode, go, next, done. Now, what does this help you to do? Now, it gives you more functional layouts. Now, if I'm switched to designing mode, I can set this item to basically, when we are designing now, we have all these stuff that we are not using. We are only using one screen, right? Where's that thing? You can basically set this item to, let me see. Set it to dev ready. They not roll it out. They should have. Let me see where that thing is. All right, I'll look for it. It's somewhere. So basically, there's an option that helps you to set it to, okay, this guy is ready to be developed. And you basically add it to you. So when you are sharing your designs, it's only what you add as dev ready the developer is going to see, right? And also, you can easily navigate screens now. So just by clicking in, you'll be switching to the next screen, to the next screen, to the next screen. So instead of the previous way, how we used to do it, especially if you used to develop and they give you like a crazy Figma file, you don't even know which one is the next one to actually do. So this dev also helps you to manage that. So we're not really going to be diving deep into it, but it gives you some CSS codes, gives you, if you select an item, you basically see more, you have more options than before, right? So basically you see the line height, you see everything about that particular item you selected, right? So, and it also, if you're also used to Chrome browser, you would have seen this. Maybe when you're inspecting, you'll see it gives you all this, what do you call it? Dimensions that are used on the design. And luckily, we now have stuff that can convert your design into code, right? So there are some plugins like Figma to React and HTML. So you can basically just run the plugin like this, and it's going to convert this your design from the dev mode into a code that maybe Now, how does it help you as a designer? You don't know how to develop. You can just basically click on this, convert it to code, and go and upload it, and you have your website or your what do you call it, portfolio or your landing page, basically. So I think these are amazing features. So out of everything, which feature do you think was the best for you? Which do you think is going to serve more for you? We've talked about auto layouts, we talked about the open prototyping features, and this is dev mode. So which do you think you're going to use the most? Which do you think is mind-blowing for you?
The variables, that variables is actually the best feature I like.
Yeah.
Yes.
The variable was like revolutionary. So anyway, I believe we would have more class. So we're going to be having another class on Saturday next week. And I don't know if, okay, basically I'll announce what the class is going to be about. I'm not the one taking it, someone is taking it. We're going to fix that. So we'll see next week Saturday. Do you have any question? You can always reach out to me. And if you want to actually go on like a more in-depth training on everything, you can also reach out. We have a class coming up for that. It's not really training. It's more like mentorship sessions, right? Where it's more hands-on. It's more you doing stuff, trying stuff on your own than people saying, so you click and you don't click. It's more like a guide and more like a resource. So the session give you like a curriculum where you have learning resources and you create stuff, we review the stuff, we give changes, just like what we're doing in Design Haven. I don't know, yeah, I think Design Haven people are here also. So like what we're doing in Design Haven, you submit your designs, you review, you make changes, we review, stuff like that. So if you're interested in that, you can just reach out to me privately. I've been waiting for this guy to load. Oh, I've actually used it before, but I have to log in. Anyway, that's it. I hope with this few points of mine, I've been able to convince you and not to confuse you. I thank you for joining. Thank you for joining my YouTube channel. I'm going to stop sharing and also stop recording. Stop recording.